Hey, 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 hey. It's a mad, 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 mad world, and this is on full display in the world of sports. So this is your man,
Ishi Hakase.
and I'm not here to talk about sports because I know for some of you that would be a No, I'm here to talk about the sports fan. Because they are funny and weird and strange and unbelievable and sometimes stupid, but very refreshing and always provocative. All right, so let's kick back a little bit and see what we got. This is an interesting time for sports. So football, professional and college, is in full swing. Football in the United States is by far the 800-pound gorilla, the most popular sport of all. That is certainly not to be confused with football that we see at the international level, which I certainly do appreciate. That seems to be always in the headlines, even to a point now that we've got Ted Lasso as one of the most popular shows out there in our streaming services. Baseball is getting ready to start their playoffs. We'll see what happens there. Anybody but the Yankees. And F1, Lewis Hamilton just won his 100th race. That is actually pretty amazing. But what I want to talk about today are the sports fans, or the fanatics. And fanatics, as we know, they get into things with excessive zeal. They get into things at the extreme level. So a fanatic is somebody who's really, really enthusiastic or devoted to something. And obviously, like we used to see in Oakland, in the black hole. And these Oakland Raiders fans would, they'd garb up in their silver and black and face paint and helmets and all kinds of crazy. And I have to tell you a story from the aside. I went to an Oakland A's baseball game once. And the Raiders, they played in the same stadium. So I was sitting 3 seats in from the aisle. 2 guys come in, they sit at the aisle. One of them says, "Hey man, if you're going to the concessions, get me 2 beers. His friend leaves, he comes back. He doesn't have 2 beers, he has 2 hot dogs. And his friend, I think, says, hey man, where are my beers? And his buddy goes, it's not good to drink beer on an empty stomach, so I figured we'd eat first. And the guy said, what are you, crazy? Man, count up my money. As in, he wanted his money back because he didn't want the hot dogs, he wanted beer. They started arguing, pushing. The guy slapped the hot dog out of the other guy's hands. Security came, escorted both of them out of the stadium, and this is all before the game had even started. But anyway, fans, they do a lot of things to express their feelings. And it's whether it's about a particular team or a player, they all have their reasons. Now, some of these reasons, they are on the right side, and some of these reasons, they are on the wrong side. But I'll let you be the judge. But I want to set the context for something that I used to experience quite often, and that was, it's hard to describe, the magic that I would see at Philadelphia Eagles games. And I have had the good fortune of seeing a lot of sporting events. I have never had so much fun watching sports as I did with the Philadelphia Eagles going back to the Buddy Ryan and Randall Cunningham days. And I know some of you can remember this. But a few years ago, I went to an Eagles game, and they were in their new stadium. And you see the guy on the right, he's wearing a Reggie White jersey. Reggie White, by the way, hasn't played for the Philadelphia Eagles in 30 years. Excuse me, the late, great Reggie White. Visiting fan from Pittsburgh, obviously rooting for the Pittsburgh Steelers. When he comes in, the guy on the right says, hey man, welcome to Philadelphia. And I said, hey, yeah, thanks. And he goes, what do you have there? And the guy in the black jersey said, "I've got a terrible towel." Now, you know, Pittsburgh Steelers fans have this yellow towel that they like to flail around. So he goes, "What do you have there?" And he goes, "I've got a terrible towel." And the guy in the white jersey looks at him and says, "Well, you're going to be crying into it later." And I was like, uh-oh, it is on. And this guy gave this dude so much shit through this game. I just sat there and was more entertained by his very polite badgering versus some of the downtime in the game. Now, so you get a sense of the scale of all of this. This is actually what it looks like from the seat that I was in. And this is way, way, way up. And if the Eagles score, you see the excitement and chaos and near pandemonium of the fan base. And those fans sitting up in that area of the stadium absolutely believe that the play that they called and yelled down to the sidelines for the coach is what actually helped them win that game. Fly, Eagles, fly. So, anyway, back to it. There are a couple of things out there, fans, that I encourage you to do more of, and there's some things that I encourage you to do less of. So, for instance, you need to do less predictive tattoos. Now, I know people are really into their teams and they get their tattoos, and this tattoo, quite frankly, looks sort of painful, but the predictive tattoo is problematic because the one thing that you don't bet on is that is what happens in the reality show that is sports. So there was a guy who has a Cleveland Cavaliers 2015 NBA champions tattoo. Problem is they won the championship in 2016. There's someone out there that has a University of Kentucky basketball undefeated national champions tattoo. Well, we know how that story ended. Kentucky got bounced out in the tournament. And then Seattle, there's somebody out there that has a back-to-back Super Bowl champions Seahawks tattoo, and that didn't work out in their favor either. Something else that you all need to stop doing is booing unknown draft picks. Now, this is many, many years back, but when Donovan McNabb got drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, the reaction from the crowd was, "Boo, boo." This guy had not played one down for the Eagles, and turns out he was very good. He actually took the Eagles to a Super Bowl one year. Had a very, very prosperous career. You have to remember, these guys are 20, 21 years old, 22 years old, never played a down in football. You know, you got to give them a chance, Browns fans. Now, maybe something that you should do more of. This is my man, Buckeye Guy, Mr. Chubb. Miss you, Mr. Chubb. Buckeye Guy gets dressed up for every game. He's got his Chevy Impala Buckeye Guy ride all decked out in scarlet and gray, cruising around Columbus, Ohio. And this is a fairly conservative getup here. Now, you'll see some people in 40, 45-foot mobile homes completely decked out with the team of their choice. And that is a significant investment. But I must tell you, I always get a kick out of seeing it. Something that I am going to suggest that you stop doing, and that is spending so much money on memorabilia. You know, we do have shows now called Hoarders, and this sort of might be borderline. It seems to me that you could maybe spend your money in other ways, perhaps like saving. But people out there, this is a $1 million industry. Somebody spent $3,000 on a urinal because Barry Sanders signed it. Someone spent $11,950 on a hat worn by Jose Canseco. He was good, but he wasn't that good. The Miracle on Ice epic, if you remember some of this. There's people that talk about collections that are up in the millions around that particular event. So that's a lot of money, but maybe I should stop hating, because if somebody's going to pay $3,000 for something that I pissed in and I'll sign it, okay, I'll take it. And speaking of hating, we need to stop hating on athletes in general. I mean, I'm always thinking people always hating on Cam Newton. And maybe it's because of the way he dresses, maybe because of the way he talks, maybe just he's a big, handsome guy. I don't know, but he's not playing ball anymore. And it seems like a whole lot of people are hating on him. And we could go on and on and on about the haters. LeBron James haters. Cam Newton haters. Tom Brady haters. Just stop hating. Let these guys do their thing. And the gals do their thing. Hey, how about tailgating? We need to have a little more of that going on. In some of these tailgates, you will find the absolute best food at these tailgating parties. If a game starts at 12 o'clock, you better believe people are out there at 6 o'clock in the morning getting all set up for the tailgate. And then you have all the sort of events that are happening at tailgates. Mud wrestling and jello wrestling matches, fans mooning other fans. Not sure what that's all about. We've had stories of people lighting themselves on fire. Lots and lots of different cornhole games out there. By the way, I do not like that name at all. I'm very close to even saying hate the name cornhole, but it seems pretty popular. If you don't know what it is, just go to Google. Google will tell you. And tailgating can be a lot of fun. You might be exhausted by the time the game starts, but it's still a lot of fun. But go out there and be careful with your tailgating. And speaking of being careful, storming the field. All right, so after the big win, and people storm the basketball court, they storm the field. This is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of co-eds that run out there after victory. And I was always sitting up high in the cheap seat, so I never got a chance to storm the field. But one of my colleagues did. She's from the Philippines. She's fairly small in stature. And she said, yeah, I ran out on Ohio State's football field and I thought I was going to die, because you just end up getting crushed by the amount of people out there. So it might look fun, but it's not fun. So we'll resign that one to television. Stop naming your kids after sports figures. Now, Tom Brady, he had a very successful career playing for the Patriots. And there's been some statistics that are saying there's over 3,000 babies in that area of the country that have been named Brady. And the same thing with Derek Jeter. And all these kids out there now named Jeter. And it goes on and on and on. There's many cases. And I would say the extreme case that I read, and I almost can't even believe this is true, but there are actually people who have named their children ESPN. And I don't know if you would pronounce that ESPN, or would you call them ESPN, or would you call them PN for short, or ES for short? But why would you name your child ESPN? And the other thing you have to be careful about is you never know if one of these athletes is going to make a wrong turn. Because it'd be a real shame if you named your kid OJ and you have to live with that stigma. And then we have to go back to Cleveland fan. I don't know if we should start doing more or less of this, but it is going shirtless in cold weather. And this is just crazy. Do you know how cold it is in Cleveland in November and December? I mean, it's below freezing. And that's just not a good look, quite frankly. Now, some people, the reality is they don't need to be walking around with their shirt off. Now, J.R. Smith, a few years back when the Cavs won the championship, and he spent apparently a week going around on tour and never put on a shirt. Even President Obama asked him to put a shirt back on. Well, he's got the body and he can carry it off. But not everybody. And it's just not shirtless. Every now and then we'll see somebody wearing a barrel or something like that. But I'll let you be the judge, but I don't think so. So we go from extreme cold to extreme heat. You gotta stop burning jerseys. Not only is it hating, not only is it dangerous, but it is expensive. Do you know how much these official sports jerseys are? That is not a really cheap item. And in this case of LeBron James, when they were burning his jerseys in Ohio, LeBron James gave so much to the state of Ohio. Let that man do what he needs to do. You should thank him and not go out and burn his jersey. But point being, stop burning jerseys. And those of you who can't get enough burning jerseys, you all got to stop burning couches too. I just never understood, after the big win, that you go out in an alley, you find an old couch, you throw some lighter fluid on it, and you set it ablaze. I don't get that at all. What I really don't get is when people burn couches after a big loss. They go out and burn up stuff. And I remember a story, there was some people at I'll say a university located in the Midwestern part of the United States, out burning couches and tipping over cars. And there were pictures, and those pictures went viral, and the university tracked them down, and they expelled all of those students. How do you explain that to your parents? Stop burning up stuff, period. And then I had to think about this last one for a moment. And I'm going to lean towards we need to do more of this. And that is streaking. Now, the networks decided, well, we're not going to dignify this. So if a streaker goes out on the field, we're not going to broadcast it on television. Well, guess what? It hasn't stopped anybody yet. You know that they enacted that policy 25 years ago, and they still like to strip off those clothes and run around. And the best part of it to me is watching the slightly overweight, terribly out of shape security guards running around and trying to subdue them. Now, you have to be careful, because every now and then these streakers out here running in these football games, and the football player decides that they've had enough, they will get leveled. And there was a rather infamous situation where a guy ran out on Ohio State football field, and one of the coaches, who I think was their strength and weightlifting coach, ran out there and clotheslined this guy like you wouldn't believe. He basically put that idiot to sleep. But it's so much more entertaining than all the television timeouts that we have to endure through sporting events now. Hey, if you got something else, hey, let me know. What should we do more of? What should we do less of? And how do we keep the sports fandom alive and safe and entertaining? Remember, everybody, you matter. If you're struggling with something, talk to somebody.